Okay. So how many of you have been told that you look like someone else, like a celebrity, an athlete, or just a friend? Okay, most of you. Who have you been told that you look like?
My older brother.
Your older brother. Okay, that's kind of true. What about you?
I've been told I look like Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston. I can see that. Okay. So you probably had minor similarities to them. You didn't look exactly identical. If you were to stand next to them, people could easily tell the difference between you two, right? Okay. What if I were to tell you that someone else in this world looks almost identical to me, and that if we were to stand next to each other, most people might not be able to tell the difference between us? Well, I do have someone in my life like that, and that's my identical twin brother, Cameron. When people find out that I have a twin brother, I start to get questions from them. But before I get into those questions, I want to tell you what makes twins different. According to the Genetic Science Learning Center's article, Insights from Identical Twins, published in 2014, because identical twins develop from a single fertilized egg, they have the same genome. So any differences between twins are due to their environments, not genetics. And a genome is like genetic material encoded in the DNA. So me and my brother are genetically identical, but mentally and emotionally and all of that stuff were different. Like he could, for example, he did crew and I swam. So we like two different things. We don't have to like exactly the same thing because we're still two different people. So what I want to talk to you guys today about is the pros and cons of having an identical twin. So I'm going to start with the cons. As stated in an interview with my identical twin brother Cameron on June 10th, 2014, he believes that a con of being a twin is constantly getting asked questions about what it is like being a twin. And we usually don't mind the questions because we're used to them, but it's the questions that are kind of irrelevant and a little out there that are amusing but at the same time a little bit annoying. An example of these questions are like, did your parents mix you up at birth? The answer to this question is no. When we were born, he had an A on his foot and I had a B on my foot because he was born first and I was born second. Also, when I was younger, I was the first to grow hair, and so that's how my mom could tell me and my brother apart. Another question we're asked is, do you feel each other's pain? The answer to that is no. People ask that, they think if I get punched, he feels the pain and vice versa. That's just a silly myth. And also, can we read each other's minds or do we have ESP? And the answer for the main part is no, but I'm going to talk more about that later. Another con about having a twin is people always mix this up. An example of this is at school we have different friends, and I have been approached by his friends that I don't know, and they say, hey, what's up, Cameron? And I have no idea who they are, so I either have to explain to them that we're identical twins, or I just go along with it and say that I'm Cameron and go from there. The next, probably the biggest con about having an identical twin is that you don't have any individuality for the most part, and you're always grouped together. So, say if we're both at an awards banquet for a sport, we're most likely going to be called up as Cameron and Carson instead of two separate people because we're always paired together. So those are the cons of having an identical twin. Here are some pros of having an identical twin. Is one, you're never alone. You always have someone there with you that is going probably through the same things as you are. So it's someone you can talk to and someone that understands you probably the most in life. So that's really cool to have. Another pro is that people think it's cool to have a twin. It's a good conversation starter because people are really interested when you tell them that you're an identical twin and they have a lot of questions to ask. And so if you want to get to know someone and you tell them you're an identical twin, then it's easier to have a conversation with them, and that's really cool sometimes. Another pro is that you can play tricks on people. Me and my brother didn't really do this growing up. Once I went into one of his classes and we kind of messed around with the teacher a little bit, but it wasn't anything, we didn't do it all the time, and we didn't really do that much. So, but other twins do that. What I was talking about earlier, ESP, that's like basically reading each other's minds. We didn't really do that. I don't want to say that we have that. Sometimes, like if I'm trying to think of something, like a person, and I can't think of the person, if I just describe that to my brother, then he can usually remember who it is and tell me. So that's kind of cool. And sometimes it's weird, but we sometimes say the same thing at the same time, which is a little freaky, but I wouldn't say we have ESP. So, in conclusion, we're basically like everyone else. and twins are like everyone else. We just look all the same. So hopefully I've addressed all of your stereotypes that you have about twins and answered any of your questions that you have about twins. So do you have any other questions? No? Okay. So thank you for listening to my speech.